Hello there. So today, I'm walking us through how to incorporate design systems into your project, and most especially how to use Chakra UI to create your design, and also see how we can translate that particular UI into a front end code using Chakra UI design system. So the first thing we are going to do is to look at the Chakra UI Figma components, because that's what we're going to use to create the UI. So I already have Chakra UI Community Edition open here, and as you can see, there's an option for us to look at all the components that is available. And also, I have this demo login page that we used last last 2 weeks on CN. So these are all CN components, and I want to see how we could replicate the same login UI on Chakra design system. All right, so let's see how it goes. So the first thing I want to do is to look at the documentation, and most especially I want to see information related to the layout, because I need to know how to set up my Figma UI. Right. So on the layout documentation here, you see they have a number of different layout components, and I'm most interested in seeing what the container does. So the container is just a frame in Figma that has a width, and it can have a max width, and okay, they also have different sizes of a container, but also a container can be fluid, which means that it can expand to take up the entire width of the UI. Okay, let's see how it goes. They also have flex. So flex is used to manage layouts. So here we see we have a flex container that is aligned horizontally. So here we have a flex component that is holding to div, which is more like holding to frames on Figma. And here we have uh, a flex container, a flex component holding three different frames stacked on top of each other. So, which means that we can use different directions like we have on Figma. And it also means when you look at a component, let's say we select this login component, and if that component is an auto layout, it's automatically a flex component, and we can have the vertical and the horizontal layouts for that particular component. We now know that we can easily use auto layout flexes on Chassis, and also let's see what other things we can do here. That also shows us a component that is called stack. Well, stack is very similar to flex component, I guess, and it says it's used to lay out each children in a vertical horizontal stack, right? So you have a stack component, and they actually have three different. You have a horizontal stack, you have a stack, and we have a vertical stack. So these are very similar to what we saw initially, and that's good for us. Also, I want to know how to add spacing in between components. So on Figma, since we are on the Figma UI kit, let's see if they have any spacing defined. So if I select on the spacing, so there's no spacing variable, so which means that we have to manually do that. But let's see the documentation first. So if we look at, let's say, teaming and take this away. Okay, so we have spacing here. Okay, so Chakra UI support the following spacing tokens out of the box. So I have a minimum of from 2 pixels all the way to 384 pixels. Okay, so since these are not currently available on Figma, what I would do is that I will use the spacing unit I already have on my system. So if I go to my other page here, and if you look at the local variables, I have a padding spacing, which you can use to add different padding. And if you look at the documentation as well, we'll see the sizes. So let's see if I can find, there was a particular one I saw that says something about spacing. Okay, so here it talks about padding, and it shows us that we can actually define a default a custom padding like 40 pixels or 80 pixels and so on, right? So here we can define this ones here. So what we do, we just copy this one into our project as a reference. And good thing is that this spacing system is in units of eight. So we have 8, 16, 24. And if you look at the documentation, where we saw this, we have 4, we have 6, we have 8. So in between all of these units is already available. It would have been nice to actually have this token already in their UI kit, but because it's not there, we're going to make use of what we have. So I have a plugin that I use to copy a collection. So I can copy this, then I go back to Chakra UI and open the same plugin, and say found, so I can paste it here. So now I have this this system here, so I could actually just rename it to spacing, right? So ideally I'll have to add more units to reflect what we have available here, but at the moment the units that are here are more than sufficient for what I need it for, right? So what I have to do now is to look at how to get all of these things going. So what do we need to get this particular UI going? So we have already figured that we need a frame, which you can use the stack component or the other layout component that we have available there, right? So we could use any of these. Now, I also need an input component, all right, for the email and password. So if you scroll down on the form section, we have inputs. Okay, so we have a variety of different inputs that we need. So we just need something that is for email and password. So we have something to work with. Okay, and we also need a button. So here we have under the form as well, we have a button component. Yes, yeah. So here we have a button component with different properties. Okay, so the other thing we need to look for, this is also a button, by the way. This is a test, this is a button. Okay, so let's get going. All right, so the first thing we want to do is to create a container, because here they told us to use a container. All right, so let's create a container, and we can use a frame. So press F on your keyboard or use the frame icon here. So let's define a desktop frame. Let's use desktop. That would do. Okay. Let's see. Let's just see. This is login page. All right. Now it's important that when you're creating your design, you are going to using the colors you have defined in your theme, right? So here on the Figma, if you look at the theme page, we already have some colors defined, right? Why these are all tokens. They are not really semantic colors that you can that is defined, like we've not defined the background color or a card color, right? So for demonstration purposes, we will just use a semantic token, a color token that has already been defined here. And as you can see on the styles here, we have different colors that already been defined, right? Ideally, we will have to define a a semantic token, but the current UI kit for Chakra UI doesn't have that defined. So if you look at what we have here, we need to define some tokens here, like defining a primary and a secondary, right? But it's currently not defined, so we are going to just assume it's there for demonstration purposes. And you can go through all the definitions here, like we have the semantic tokens where um, it defines some different values to a particular color and how to reference them. And this is important for when the engineering team is translating the design to code. Okay, and here we have colors as well. So yeah, these are the colors that we already have on the UI kit. So at the moment, all we have is the tokens. So these are all the tokens, as you can see. And I think there's also a section that says semantic. Um, okay, yeah. So Chakra UI support these semantic tokens out of the box. So this is actually available on when you're doing on the code, but at the moment on Figma, however, they are not available, right? So that was my initial point. So ideally, if the UI kit is complete, the semantic tokens will also be available on Figma as well. So that's something you need to keep in mind. Okay, so let's just use what we have to demonstrate what we need to do at the moment. So here we have a container. So let's use a background white for that. And also let's define is a box, right? So there's a component here that is called a box, right? So this the most abstract styling component on top of which all other Chakra UI components are built, right? So it's more like what is going to house the element inside. So we can just let's see uh, if there were to be a layout section here with all these components, we can actually use the Chakra UI box component, but is just a simple frame. It doesn't have any particular styling there, right? So all we just need to do is to reference that way it is done on the code and imitate it here on Figma. So we can just call this box, right? And what we'll do also, we are going to add a stroke to it. So as you can see here, we can add a shadow, right? Which is good. And we can pass any other, as you can see here, we can pass any CSS property to a box component, and we can also pass a border to it, which is good. Okay, so what we can do here, let's just pass a border here, and we can use a stroke. You can say stroke. Look. Okay, let's use a transparent color. Yeah, so we can also add a corner radius. So for us to be able to use padding, because right now the padding is really defined to be used when you're adding a padding, and also but it's not available when you're adding a corner radius. That's why you're not seeing the spacing properties here, right? So if you want to actually use this both for spacing and corner radius, what you have to do is to make sure the options you want for corner radius has is properly set up in the properties. So we can select all the ones we want to use for corner radius and right click on it. We can say edit variable on the scope, right? We want to select corner radius as part of the place where we can use the spacing unit, and we can close that. And now if we select our property and go back here, we can see we can select our variable. So we can just choose 16 for reference. I hope you can see that. So the next thing we need to do is to add a text property. So let's get started with AI base. All right, then you also notice on the theme as well, there is a defined typography here. So it's important that you go to the documentation and look at how the typography is used. So if you go through here, you will now see that they have different sizes. You can highlight a particular text, as you can see here. Then you can also use different weights, and all of these properties are already defined here, as you can see. So what we need to do is to imitate the same, right? So selecting your text, you wouldn't be choosing a random typography here or a random text here. You have to choose from a defined uh, typography here. So since we are using heading, we can maybe use a heading of 6 or 7. Let's see 7 medium. Yeah, this is good. So what we need to do now, we can turn this to an auto layout and center it on the screen. Just we can add a padding here, and yeah, so we can just use this, and now we can make it top, right? So we can increase the size. Let's say we use 24 medium, right? Now, considering that they told us here that we can actually select a text and add a highlight. So if you look at the code, we are going to see that inside the text, there's a place where we have a highlight. So here we have a heading, and they're using the 2XL heading, and we have a highlight, right? So that is what defines these highlights. And I'm trying to find, so the highlights is using this teal color. And okay, that's interesting. Okay, so we know we can do that on the code, on the design. So here we can just select this particular property here, just like we have on our UIs. Okay, we have the AI selected, so we can just select the AI here, and we choose color. Let's say we use a blue, since our design is blue. There's a blue here. And mind you, if this were semantic colors, it would be you will now be careful about accessibility. So if these were semantic colors and they have been defined for a specific purpose, by default the semantic color is already accessible, right? But because we are using a token, that's why we can't release. We need to be uh, sure that the token we are using has good contrast. So for reference purposes, I will just use red, so it's easy for you to see what's on the screen, right? So the next thing we want to do is to add some other properties. So here we need an input field. So let's since this has already been defined on as a component, all we need to do is to search for input, right? So we have input group, we have input, so we can click on this, and let's customize the property before adding it to our design. So we need an outline, right? So this is an outline, so we need an outline. Yes, we need, let's see, okay, we can change that later. Let's use this one. That is invalid is disabled placeholder. So placeholder is email, right? So we can also make it more definitive. Enter email address. Okay. and we can say insert. Now we have uh, here. So what we need to do now, we add it. We can make this horizontal vertical stack. So what we need to do, we need to wrap this in a frame. Remember, there's what is called stack on the styling, on the layout, I mean. So there's a stack here and there's a flex. So either of these, so we can use the stack. So here now we'll need a stack to represent, to wrap this component, right? So when we do that, remember in the flex or stack, a stack can take up the entire width, right? So we can actually make this full width, right? And we can as well make this full width if we want. Okay, there's no full width available. Okay, let me make this an auto layout. Then we can now make this a full width. Yeah, you see that? So because this is a component, we can play around with the properties here to see the difference, right? So we can actually use field, but that's not what we want. So we'll remove it, right? Now, this is for email, but one thing I want to confirm from the component system here, I want to see on the inputs, how are labels handled. Are labels different components, or you have to use just a random text for the labels? So if I look at input, see we have email, and we see we have outlined and all different properties, different sizes, and okay, they have helper text. So pair the inputs with field component to add helper text. Okay, let's the code. Okay, so we have a field component that has a label and a helper text, right? And then we have the input inside of it. So the field of Figma would just be a frame, right? So let's say that this frame we have defined here. Let me bring this up for you to see. All right, so let's say that I can add more space in here. Okay, see. All right, so let's say that this frame we've defined is the field component, because on Figma, this field component is just a frame, right? So what we need to do now is to add the properties that we need to add there. And the properties we want to add is just the label and the helper text. So how do we do that? If you notice, the spacing in between here is very small. So, and also the same thing here. So if you go on a preview, the spacing is very small. And if we actually look at the Chrome Dev tool and select this section, you will notice that the gap there is using spacing 1. And what is spacing 1? Spacing 1 is 0.375 rems. So if you go back to the theming, and let me just close this and look at spacing, 0.35 rem is about 6 pixels. You see that? But at the moment, we don't have that particular spacing, because remember, we imported this spacing unit. So it's not exactly what we need. So what we'll do is just duplicate this and add a 6 pixels. So we can call this one 6. All right. So now what next do we need to do? We need to add properties. So we need two text components. So I could just okay. One thing I have no, I didn't do. I need to change this to black. So let me use 800. Okay. So what I need to do is add a new text. So I could just duplicate this. Okay, so I need to make this hook contents. All right. So bring this. So I will just carry this down into this section. And I can call this email, right? Then I will duplicate it first, and also you call this helper text, which I'll be changed later on, right? So what I need to do now is to use a more smaller font. So let's go to the body or even caption. So have text 14, 12 is small. So let's use 14 small. So we can use, so depending on the screen you're designing for. So if it's for desktop, it's always good to use good font sizes, right? So, but for hypertext here, we could obviously use, let's say 14. Um, 14. So what we can do, we can come back to the here and we can just say, okay, let's use this. We'll never share your email. So here, all right. Now, what I also need to do, I can decide to, okay, let me make this a little bit fainter because it's a hypertext, right? So I can just use a more lighter property that is still obviously accessible because you don't want to use something that is not readable. It's very important. All right. So let's reduce the spacing on top. And all we need to do now is duplicate this field, right? And this will be password. And the text here will now be enter your password. All right. So how does it look? I mean, it's very close, right? Okay. So the other thing we need to figure out is you know how many to add the button, right? So what we can also do, let's just hide this buttons because it's not part of our UI that we're referencing, right? So now the next thing we need to do is to add the button, all right? But what I love doing also is to make sure I always group things. So here, I'll select these two, I'll make it an auto layout. So I'll call this vertical stack. I hope you remember where where is coming from, because if you go back to the layouts, we have a stack and we have what is called vertical stack. So I could actually make sure I call it the exact same name, right? And we could use our spacing system to add the spacing that we want. So let's say call it 16. Now the next thing I want to add is a button. So if I go to the button section here, I will see all the documentation for the button, and I can now add a button to this UI. So because this is a component, I will search for button and I will see the button here. So I don't need two icons, so I could just turn off the icons and I will insert it and see how it looks like. All right, so I'll select my here. Okay, now what's the it's called get started, right? So you could just copy the text and select the button and replace the label as get started. Okay, so the other thing we want to do, we want to make sure that the button spans to take up the same width as the input field. So I could just change this from hub content to field container, and yeah, here we are. Right now, the other thing I want to look at is how to manipulate the properties. All right, so we have all the different variants here, so on and so forth. All right, so the last thing we need to do is to add this, right? So all I need to just do is to I'll be add this button into another vertical stack. So I'll frame it and I will call it vertical stack. Right now, I will make it an auto layout, obviously. Then I will copy this text and add it there. Now this text, I'll make this text also a horizontal stack. So I'll turn this into an auto layout and I'll make it a full width, right? So I'll call this already a member. So already a member, right? Now what I want to do, I want to figure out is I want to add another button here for them to log in, right? So I will copy this and inside of this stack, so I'll call this horizontal stack. So inside of this stack, I'll paste this button. Oops. So it just messed up everything. So let's make it extra small. Okay, let's make it outline. Let's see. No, this is actually not an outline button. This is a link button. But here, however, we have outline and solid indeed. But if you look at the documentation, we'll see that we actually have, okay, we have solid outline and this other one, this fill, I think so. Okay, yeah, we have more variants actually. So we have solid, outline, subtle, surface, ghost, plane. So what we need there is either ghost or plane. I would prefer to use ghost because ghost has a hover property. But unfortunately, the button component here on the UI kit doesn't have that. Um, so what we'll do, we could just mimic that because we know it's possible to have it, right? So we could remove the stroke. Okay, so it's not working. So what I would do is I'll detach it. I'll detach it from the component. So I'll just remove the stroke. All right. So what I need to do is to change this text to login. Login. Okay. So this is because the actual component is not available on the UI kit, and that's why I had to change it that way. Ideally, I will have selected the button and changed it to ghost or to the other property that is available on documentation. And this is why I always stress that the Figma UI kit is not the source of truth for design system, right? Because most times things can change on the code and the team behind it might not have the time yet to update the UI kit. So in this case now you see that the other variants of the button is not available, right? So the other thing we just need to do is to update these colors to use the same pink 600 that we used before. Pink 600. Yeah. And here we have our buttons. Of course, we can manipulate all these things to go the way we want. And now the other thing we can do as well is to just duplicate this one, remove this other stack. Here, then we have this, right? So I can add a padding on the top to give more space. Now this I can make this an outline, add a button. So what is that? Continue with Google. So I can change this to continue with Google. Okay. Now what I need to do is to make this, this should be black because it's a secondary call to action. So we shouldn't make it so obvious. Yeah, I mean, this is good actually. So ideally, if we had semantic button colors defined for button, this will have been using the semantic button colors, obviously not what I did right now, but because the current UI kit for the Chakra UI is not up to date, so some of those properties are not really available for us to use. And here we are able to compose this entire UI, and we are very certain that this can be implemented by the engineering team because everything we used is literally what we have here on the documentation website. Right. So in the next section, what we'll do is to now convert this entire login section to a front end code so that our users can actually use this to log into their web application. All right. Thank you very much for listening, and see you in the next section.